Hi everybody and welcome once again to Ruby's Classic Cooking. And today I'm going to make cinnamon buns with the help of my bread machine. So if you've got one of these handy dandy gadgets tucked away somewhere in some dark corner, get it on out, and it's fall time for some lovely cinnamon buns. If you love cinnamon buns, you're going to love these guys, and they're really easy to do because you know what? The bread machine does about 90% of the work. Anyway, here's my bread machine bucket. Okay, well, my sister Louise and I, we took the sweet dough recipe that came with the bread machine and we tweaked it and played with it a bit and came up with cinnamon buns. So, let's get started on the cinnamon buns. It starts off with a cup and a half of warmed milk. I just take this from the refrigerator and I put it in the microwave and zap it for 35 seconds in a microwave safe container. Now, if you don't have a microwave, you can put it in a pan on your stove and heat it just until it gets to be body temperature. Let's stick your finger in it. That's about 350 milliliters of milk. So don't worry, all the recipe and everything will be down below. Of course, you might have to find your recipe in your book for your bread machine and follow it for making a batch of sweet dough. So anyway, that's the milk in. Now it'll call for water and powdered milk in your recipe, but you know what? Just use whole milk. Because you know what? It works much better. It makes much more flavorful pastry. And in the sweet dough recipe, it used milk. It didn't use powdered milk and water. The next thing in the bucket is the egg. One egg. And that is a grade A large white. Because you know what? Sorry, but brown eggs are marketing. Because white eggs, brown eggs, it looks different on the outside. Guess what? Just like people, it's the same inside. Now, don't use shortening or margarine in this, for goodness sakes. You're making cinnamon buns. Use a quarter cup of butter. Butter is better. Yeah, also quarter cup of white sugar. This is white granulated sugar. There you go, that goes in. My original measuring cups, that's almost 50 years old. And I'm going to measure out a teaspoon of salt. A teaspoon of salt. That goes right in here in my bread machine bucket. There we go. 3 3/4 cups of flour. Now this is all-purpose flour. That's Canadian all-purpose flour. In the United States, they'll have a separate recipe in the bread machine using American flour. So follow that. Okay. So follow your amounts in your recipe book that came with your bread machine. And in the UK, that'll be strong flour or bread flour, okay? Now for the yeast. And it says to use 1.5 teaspoons of yeast, which is 7 grams of yeast. Now I've got a package of yeast here. I don't usually buy it this way, but I was at the grocery store a couple of weeks ago and guess what? They had 3 packages of yeast for 50 cents. That is a bargain because it was running out at the end of August. Well, I'm using yeast in my cupboard that ran out at the end of April. Yeast is a plant and it doesn't die the day after the expiration date comes on your package. You can just keep on going with it and you can just keep on using it. Here's a tip. If you want to find out if your yeast is still good or not and you're not sure, take a cup of warm water, which is about 250 milliliters of water, warm to the touch of the bottom of the inside of your wrist, and put that in a cup. Put that in a bowl. Add about a teaspoon, which is about 5 milliliters of sugar. Stir it around. Then put a teaspoon, 7 milliliters of your yeast in it. Leave it sit for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and if it starts to grow and bubble, then yes, your yeast is perfectly fine to use. No matter what it says on the package about what best before dates and stuff like that. Don't worry about it. Just use it and it will work just fine. Okay, into my bread machine goes my bucket. And lock it in place. Make sure my handle is down. Close my lid. And now, I'm going to have to plug in my machine. Just a second. So I put my bucket in and I've locked it in place. And now I'm just going to press the start button on my machine and find my dough setting, and away we go for 2 hours. bread tag. Found my dough setting, press my start button, and in 2 hours I'll come back and my dough will be all ready to use, and I'll come back and show you that. Now, in the meantime, cinnamon buns, okay? So, while then that's just about ready to go, I've got a tablespoon of butter here, which I'm going to melt. I have a half a cup of sugar, which I'm going to mix with 3 teaspoons of cinnamon, and then I'm going to have my cinnamon sugar for my cinnamon buns. And if that's not enough, I'll mix up some more. So I don't like putting icing on top of them. I like to put butter on them instead. So anyway, we'll be back in about 2 hours, and I'll have this, which I'll show you how I mix this up. If you want to make cinnamon toast, you can take, it's just a ratio of plain white sugar to cinnamon. And you just buy your cinnamon and you mix a teaspoon into 2 tablespoons of white sugar, and you can keep it in a sprinkly type, container to sprinkle on your toast or whatever else you want cinnamon sugar on, because why not? Why buy cinnamon sugar already mixed together at the grocery store and pay a fortune for it when all it is a couple of tablespoons of plain old white sugar mixed with a teaspoon of this. Okay, well, it's been very close to 2 hours since I started my cinnamon buns in my bread machine. It's got 5 minutes left to go. So while I'm waiting for that, I'll show you the next step, which is melted my 1 tablespoon of butter, and I have a half a cup of sugar here with 3 teaspoons of cinnamon mix, which I'm going to mix in. Now, a tablespoon of butter is about 15 milliliters. And that's 15 milliliters of cinnamon and about 120 grams of sugar. So I'm just going to stir these together. And 120 milliliters of sugar. Sorry, 120 milliliters of sugar. Sorry. Anyway, 120 milliliters of sugar. Anyway, I'm just going to stir these together. And if you ever want to make cinnamon sugar for something, just remember this ratio. And if you find that this is a lot for your cinnamon buns, great. However, if you don't, then you can feel free to make up some more, because you're here in your kitchen cooking, and if this doesn't seem to you to be enough cinnamon sugar for your cinnamon buns, mix up some more and put some more on, because that's what makes them cinnamon buns, and that's what makes them good, right? That's what part of the good thing about baking your own. Now, if you get them at a store, or bakery, or bake shop, or specialty store, you know what? You get how much cinnamon they think you should have. But you get to choose. When you're cooking them yourself, you get to pick. Now, first thing I'm going to do when this comes out of here, another 3 minutes, I'm going to roll them out into a 9 by 15 inch rectangle, which is about 23 centimeters by 30 centimeters. And I'm going to roll that out. Then I'm going to brush my melted butter on it. And then I'm going to sprinkle my cinnamon sugar over the top of it. I'm going to roll it up like a jelly roll or a Yule log, however you want to call it. Then I'm going to cut it into 1 inch, 2.5 centimeter size slices. Then I'm going to put it into my square pan, like with the roll side showing up. And I'm going to put it in I've preheated my oven just to about 200 degrees Fahrenheit, which is about 100 degrees Celsius, and then turned it off, just so I have a nice, warm, wonderful place to put my cinnamon buns to rise. I'm going to leave them there to rise for about 45 minutes. I'm going to take them out, turn my oven up to 400 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 205 degrees Celsius, and I'm going to bake them off for 15 to 20 minutes. So while they're rising, I'm going to go away again. So 2 more minutes and I'll be taking care of these cinnamon buns here, and I'm just going to spread just a little bit of flour on here to put my cinnamon bun dough from the bread machine out here and get it going. I may just tilt this camera down a bit just so you can see what's going on down here. There we go. So there's my bread machine beeping. Time to get out the dough. My bread machine out of the way because it's done its job, and look at this beautiful dough that's coming out of here. I'm just going to drop that dough right on my little bit of flour here, and there we go. Doesn't that look good? Oh, this is a beautiful soft and silky dough, and I am just going to squish this out here, and it didn't take me any effort at all. All I did was measure some ingredients into the bread machine and come back 2 hours later, and here it is, ready to work with. And I have my rolling pin here. Roll this out roughly into a rectangle. It doesn't have to be perfect, but of course you want it to be fairly good at a rectangle because you want it to be, you want those buns on the end to get the same amount of dough in them as the ones in the middle. There, just rolling up those big bubbles. My dough is fairly even in thickness, because that's what I want it to be. And I sort of more or less have a rectangle going here. Anyway, okay, now start brushing this dough with my melted butter. You want to put this on because you want your cinnamon and sugar mixture to stick to it. Plus it adds flavor, of course, to your cinnamon buns. If you can roll it a better rectangle than me, good on you. But this is the rectangle I'm going with. It's a little bit off here, but it will make delicious cinnamon buns, and that's what's important. Not that my rectangle is perfect, right? Because that is what home cooks do. We create good cooking, good tasting food. But unlike professional chefs and bakers, well, sometimes our rectangles aren't 100% rectangles, and sometimes it doesn't have that picture perfect magazine appearance. But if it tastes good, that's what the family loves. Now, sprinkle a generous amount of cinnamon sugar. That's the nice thing about being a home baker, is that you don't have a this is where the home cook and the professional baker and professional chef differ. Because a professional baker running a bake shop, well, they have a bottom line. Or has a price point that he has to watch out for, or she has to watch out for, to make sure that their final product is profitable for the bakery and pays for their expenses, so they know how much they have to use of cinnamon and sugar to make cinnamon buns that people will buy, but that are profitable. Now, when you're a home cook, you're not worried about your profit margins. So it makes you cook a little bit differently and approach food a little bit differently. Now let's just roll this up like a jelly roll, you see? And now, see that? Now, and I have one of my stoneware square pans. This is a 9-inch pan, which is a 23-centimeter pan, square pan. And I'm going to be cutting my cinnamon buns here, and I'm going to be putting them in here so that I have my cinnamon buns all nicely done up here. So, and I don't really care about if the end one is pretty or not, because I'm feeding them to my family, and they're not going to be that fussy if they're not perfect looking, you know? Alrighty. Here's the first one. I'm probably going to put a little more cinnamon on top of that, because that is a little plain looking. And I'm just cutting these about 1 inch, about 2.5 centimeters apart here in size. And there you go. Just going to keep cutting these apart until I fill my pan. And I have a second pan standing by in case I need that. I'm probably going to mix up a bit more cinnamon sugar so I can put some more on top here. Oh, and we've got Buddy the dog visiting us again. If you saw a big black dog just go across in the background, he's staying with us for the weekend. Because we're babysitting again. Yeah, once I've got these in my pan, I'm going to go in the oven to rise for 45 minutes. And oh, I do need a second pan, so here's my second pan. I'm going to get two 9-inch square pans of cinnamon buns out of this. I usually get 20 to 22 buns out of it, which is a good number of cinnamon buns, considering what ingredients you have to put into it. Oh, and these freeze really well too. So, and this is just what they look like right now. They'll be much bigger and fluffier when they've risen in the oven for an hour, or for 45 minutes I should say, and they finished rising in the oven. After all these years of experience, I can eyeball the inch. So I want to cut these, and if you need to measure them, go for it. It's all part of the learning curve. There we go. Just a few more here to go. The important thing is to make sure you cut them all about the same width. I'm ready to go into the oven at 400 degrees, 205 Celsius when they're finished. See, there's my one pan. And there's the other pan. Ready to go in the oven. Okay, I might just put another one in here because that pan is rather full. There we go. Looked at my recipe and it says let them rise 30 to 45 minutes. And these have been rising about 35 minutes and they're double in bulk, which is what you're supposed to achieve. And here they are, and I'll just hold those up to the camera. That's one. And here's my second pan. You can see how those have finished rising and how they have filled in the pan and they're ready to go in the oven. So just as soon as my oven is up to 400 degrees Fahrenheit, these are going to go in the oven for 12 to 15 minutes, and I'll check them after 12 minutes to make sure they're doing okay. Then I'll be putting them out here on the racks, and I'll show you the final product. And then put some out on a plate and take some pictures of them. I hope you enjoyed this recipe today, and I hope you'll like and subscribe to my video, and I hope you'll try these in your bread machine that may be loitering in the dark corner of your kitchen. Or one last thing, I almost forgot, with the excitement of having the dog visiting, I almost forgot about my grandson's Lego. It's here and it's helping me today, and it'll be here to supervise my getting them out of the oven and getting them ready to eat. Hopefully I will see you soon, grandson. Love you very much. You had a birthday a little while ago, and I hope you had a great birthday and a great birthday party. And I hope you enjoyed the present that Grammy and Grampy sent you. Anyway, I'll be back to show everybody these cooked cinnamon buns. Until then, enjoy. Fresh and hot from the oven, cinnamon buns. Look at that. Aren't those gorgeous looking? Of them. And they are, I've got 23 here between these two pans. And you saw all that it took me to make these. Not much in the line of ingredients. And here we are with gorgeous, delicious cinnamon buns fresh from the oven. And I think they're even Lego figurine approved. Hope you enjoyed my recipe today, and I hope you'll join me again next time on Ruby's Classic Cooking. Bye for now.